PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. Here's my recap of Game 9 of the World Chess Championship match between Gukesh Dommaraju, today playing white, and Liren playing black. Scores even going into this 9th game. Now, you might notice another backdrop, a different backdrop. I've been moving around a lot over the last few days, and I'm actually at the Emirates Stadium. That's right, the home of Arsenal Football Club. What am I doing here? Normally I'm in West London watching football. I'm actually a commentator, I hope you can see that, a commentator at the London Chess Classic. And I'm also giving some tuition here as well. So you might hear voices in the backdrop. There are lots of kids who are having a schools competition here. So yeah, and I've got, look at this. This is funny. It says North London is red. Of course, Arsenal play in red. Not West London though. That's Brentford. Yes, come on you bees. Anyway, it's a fantastic venue here. It really is. So let's crack on with the game. So game 9. Gukesh playing white. Opens with d4. So a straightforward opening today. White claiming the centre. And fianchetto, so looking perhaps to go into a Catalan. Ding plays a check. And you can block this with knight c3, knight d2 or bishop d2. Bishop d2. Now, this is a very subtle idea. The bishop drops straight back to e7. The point is, black is arguing that the bishop is just very slightly misplaced on d2. It's a very common variation, this actually. So it's a Catalan. White has fianchettoed the king's bishop. And instead of taking on c4, black plays c6. So it's the closed Catalan, this is known as. So it's a really solid variation for both sides. You know, black is strong pointing this pawn in the middle. Queen c2. By this stage, black was probably threatening to take this pawn. And knight d7. Black is a little bit cramped, but it's a very respectable system. And that's how this bishop gets into the game. Of course, this bishop blocked in, and it's going to come into the game on one of these squares. Bishop c3. Well, in this line, often this bishop moves to f4, actually. Ding has a lot of experience with this line on the white side. And bishop c3 from Gukesh is a little bit unusual. Now, what happens if black takes this pawn? Well, in this case, the knight comes forward, and white is going to recover one of these pawns because black can't take that. Opens up the d-file. That's the problem when you've got a rook opposite the queen, and then e4 wins material because of the pin. So let's go back. So it makes no sense for black to give up that centre point on d5. You could play knight e4 here. I mean, if black wants to play very sharply, then this is possible. And you can play this kind of French setup with the pawn on f5. But whenever you advance the f-pawn, that can have long-term consequences for the king. Anyway, Ding, after a 19-minute think, played bishop b7. So the game is following the pattern that we've seen in many games, where Ding was consuming a lot of time and Gukesh moving quite quickly. But so far, everything absolutely normal. The queen comes out, connecting these rooks. I mean, black is under no pressure at all. White has a little bit more space. Rook into the middle, looks normal. b4, so Gukesh is trying to gain some space. And, you know, if he could perhaps get in c5, then that's quite a serious pawn wedge. It would leave that bishop not looking very good on b7, and that's why Ding decided, right, now is the moment when I've got to break out. He thought for about 18 minutes over that move. As I said, Ding consuming a lot of time at this stage in the game. So, lots of pawn captures available. Gukesh exchanged once. Played queen b2, so the queen stepping away so that the rook looks at the queen. And also on this diagonal. I mean, I expected just rook b8 here, looks like a very natural move. But Ding played knight b6, again, after another think of almost 18 minutes. Bishop a5, that's a little bit uncomfortable for black, that pin. Ding thought for 15 minutes over d takes c4. And knight takes c4. So I think you can see that there's no doubt that white is more active here. You know, these pieces look pretty good. Certainly white looks better coordinated. And Ding has obviously anticipated this position and played his next move quite quickly. He had options here. He could have played knight takes c4. Now, don't take the queen because black ends up having winning material. But here, rook takes, exchange of pieces, and in fact, black seems to be fine there. But Ding chose another way to simplify. He played bishop takes f3, and then after bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop f3, he just moved the rook. So Ding is basically just hoping for a big exchange of pawns here. I mean, it's a pity to give up that light squared bishop, but then again, white has given up a bishop as well. I mean, white is a little bit more active here. It's a little bit uncomfortable for black that the rook is opposite the queen. But it is very hard for white to make progress here, considering that, you know, this pawn is potentially a bit weak. That one's on b6 a bit weak, but the a2 pawn a bit weak. Gukesh thought for about 12 minutes and played queen b5. So he was way ahead on the clock at this moment. And it looks like, you know, white is driving forward. But actually, whoops, sorry, I'll just go back. It allows a simplification. Rook takes a2. I mean, maybe Gukesh thought there was nothing much going on here, or maybe he thought he was simply better in this position. It's very hard to say. I mean, black still has a problem here, so maybe Gukesh just thought this was better for white. You know, there's a pin here. White is trying to win this pawn. But Ding's next move was very cool. It was noticeable over these last few moves that Ding was starting to play much quicker. So we're at move 21 now. Now, white's problem is if you play pawn takes pawn, then rook takes, and rook a5 recovers the pawn because the queen will have to move, and then just rook takes pawn. Everything's even. So Gukesh, after 31 minutes, big think, played queen b1. Now, black has to be very careful. Now, here is where I'd like you to have a think. And I'll have a drink from my Arsenal plastic mug. North London is red, but not West London. Oh yes, West London is red as well. That's Brentford colours. As I said, you have a think, I'll have a drink. What should black play here? Cheers. I'll even drink to the health of Arsenal because this is such a fantastic stadium, I have to say. Now, got to be careful. So what about rook takes pawn? Well, then rook takes rook, pawn takes, and rook c8 check. Ooh, back rank problem. And queen b4, and that is absolutely decisive. So coming back here. C takes d4, also not good because of knight c8. And this overloads the queen. The queen has to protect the bishop and the rook, and the queen moves, knight takes, and the rook drops. So black cannot capture on d4. But Ding came up with a really cool move, rook b8. So there's a pin. Knight is hit. Pawn takes pawn. Now, take care. You can't take here straight away. There are back rank problems. But here's the cool move. Rook a6. So it's just more firepower here. And there's a pin. Queen b5. This is what happened. I mean, Gukesh doesn't have anything better. He thought for 21.5 minutes, couldn't find anything better. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes. Now, it's not, don't get it too excited, it's not checkmate if this one comes down here, because there is simply knight e8, and that covers the back rank. So Gukesh simply exchanged, and now with 4 against 4 on the king side, even material, it's going to be a draw. And Gukesh just offered an exchange. G5's nice, gaining a bit of space, very common idea. But of course, we're just drifting towards a draw here. And yet, Gukesh was a bit casual. By this stage, Ding was playing very quickly. He didn't have any time pressure, really. These moves are easy. But a knight can be better at manoeuvring in this kind of position, with all the play on one side of the board. Gukesh was a little bit casual here. He allowed that bishop to be exchanged off. Yeah, I know I've just said the knight is often better than the bishop, but here at least black has been able to damage the pawn. So black, well, you could say, has a little positional advantage because those pawns are split. Now, even if one of those pawns is won, then it'd be very difficult to win. But Ding has a slight chance here. You know, this is a little bit passive. Ding decided to play f6 here. f5 is a very interesting move. Now, this is still a draw, but it's tricky. You know, if the king comes here, the computer will tell you this is just a dead draw. But I think this is, you know, you can try and fool around here, or maybe rook f1, and this could get a bit nasty actually. Or maybe rook e3 check rather, take this pawn. Again, the computer thinks this is a draw, but you know, you win a pawn, stuff happens. You just never know. Maybe it's not possible to make progress, but I mean, maybe the best move after f5 is simply to close it with h4. But even then, you know, that rook might like to land on g4. Let's try this here. This is tricky. Okay, this is going to save white. I mean, it should be fine, but Ding could have played on a little bit, is what I want to say. But instead, he just thought, oh well, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. And he played f6. And after this, well, he decided, okay, let's just steer this one towards a draw. And yeah, this is of course a dead draw with the king in front of the extra pawn. And 2 kings on the board is just a draw. Well, it wasn't the most dramatic game, but I think there are a couple of moments of interest. I think Ding maybe rushed it with this simplification, but even then, I mean, to make anything of this position was incredibly difficult. You know, white could wait here with e3. Queen b5 was a mistake, even though it looked good. It allowed Ding to simplify. I think it would have been more interesting just to hold the tension, because White's pieces are a little bit better than Black's. But Ding did extremely well and steered the game to safety with this idea of Queen A7 and Rook A6, and then it's a forced draw. So, hard to say who's happier after that one, but anyway, it's another draw. We still have 4 games to go. Tomorrow is a rest day. I'll see you back on Saturday. Thanks for watching.